Formula One has often struggled to break into the American market. Historically, the United States has produced several successful drivers, but in more recent years, investment and interest in Formula One has been superseded by domestic series like IndyCar and NASCAR. In 2014, businessman Gene Haas decided to spread his influence out from his eponymous tool manufacturing company and NASCAR team and create a Formula One team of his own. This is the story of Haas F1 Team. From the 1980s onwards, there was a marked decline in American investment and involvement in Formula One. 1978 world champion Mario Andretti retired from Formula One in 1982, and the collapse of Haas Lola in 1986 and the retirement of Eddie Cheever in 1989 meant that Formula One went into the 1990s without any American teams or drivers. Over the next 25 years, only 2 American drivers competed in the pinnacle of motorsports and no American teams, but that changed in January 2014 when American businessman and engineer Gene Haas expressed his intention to create a Formula One team to race in 2015. Gene Haas, unrelated to Carl Haas of Haas Lola, was the founder of the largest tool manufacturer in the United States, Haas Automation Incorporated, and a successful collaborative NASCAR team, Stewart Haas Racing. In 2009, 15 prospective Formula One teams applied to join the grid. 3 teams were chosen, one of which was US F1, created by journalist Peter Windsor and former employee of Haas Ken Anderson. Haas was approached with the proposition of a leadership role within the team, but declined, and US F1 then collapsed in February 2010 after money quickly ran out. In early 2014, Haas had a change of heart and applied to create a team in his own name, initially being called Haas Racing Development. On April 11th, the team was granted a racing license by the FIA. They were free to race in 2015, but on May 28th announced that they had deferred entry to 2016. The team was well funded from the revenue from Haas Automation, and Haas owned one of the world's most advanced wind tunnels, the Windshear Tunnel in Concord, North Carolina, so the team had high aspirations for this new venture which they wanted to be fully prepared for. The team's headquarters were constructed near to the Stewart Haas headquarters in Kannapolis, North Carolina, only 30 miles from Charlotte, North Carolina, deep in the NASCAR heartland. 5 years earlier in 2009, Haas had met former Jaguar team principal and Red Bull Racing technical director Gunther Steiner, who had originally suggested that Haas and Stewart Haas colleague Joe Custer create a Formula One team of their own. As he had Formula One experience and lived in nearby Mooresville, Steiner was made team principal in April 2014. Through his Formula One connections, Steiner began recruiting key staff and also began talks with Ferrari and Dallara about technical collaborations. In October 2014, the Marussia F1 team went into administration and put all their assets up for sale, including their factory in Banbury in Oxfordshire. This factory was then bought by Haas to serve as a convenient European base. As well as the factory, they also recruited ex-Marussia employees Dave O'Neill and Rob Taylor, who were appointed team manager and chief designer respectively. Going into 2015, Steiner was successful in securing technical partnerships with Dallara and Ferrari. Dallara agreed to design the team's first car, and Ferrari agreed to supply power units to the team and also gave them experienced engineer Ben Agathangelu, who was appointed chief aerodynamicist. Haas decided to structure the team as a client of Ferrari, which effectively made them an unofficial B team and gave them access to a large amount of Ferrari technical data. The team was set up with a factory, key staff and technical assets and equipment, but now just needed drivers. On September 29th, experienced Renault and Lotus veteran Romain Grosjean was announced as their first driver. A month later, on October 31st, former Sauber driver Esteban Gutierrez was announced as their second driver, having spent 2015 as Ferrari's test and reserve driver. 3 pre-season testing sessions were planned for 2016, a wet weather test at Paul Ricard from January 25th to 26th, and 2 tests at Catalunya from February 22nd to 25th and March 1st to 4th. On the morning of the first day of the first Catalunya test, Haas unveiled their 2016 Challenger, the Dallara-built Ferrari-powered VF16. Dallara were chiefly in charge of the design of the car, while working in collaboration with in-house Haas engineers Rob Taylor and Ben Agathangelu. Ferrari supplied power units, gearboxes and suspension. The front and rear wings and brake ducts were also near identical to those of Ferrari's 2016 car, the SF16H. The car also had a fresh grey, red, black and white livery, which was largely absent of sponsors, save for Haas Automation and Grosjean and Gutierrez's personal sponsors. Grosjean went out first on day 1, but completed only 31 laps after a front wing failure halted running in the morning. Gutierrez ran on day 2 and improved this to 79 laps and went 6th fastest after running some small upgrades to the power unit. Grosjean was back in again on day 3 and impressed to go 2nd fastest after 82 laps. Gutierrez ran on the 4th and final day, but was only 10th after 89 laps and stopped on track in the afternoon with an ECU failure which brought out the red flags. At the start of the second test, the team announced the appointment of 2 GP3 series drivers as development drivers for 2016. 18-year-old Monegasque Ferrari Academy driver Charles Leclerc and 17-year-old American Santino Ferrucci. The second test did not get off to a smooth start as Gutierrez completed only 23 laps in the morning before a fuel system issue stopped running for the rest of the day. The second day was even worse as Gutierrez only completed a single installation lap before the turbocharger gave up. The third day was an improvement as Grosjean completed 78 laps, but he went off at turn 4 with a brake failure in the morning which brought out the red flags, and then went off again at turn 9 in the afternoon, bringing out the red flags again. Grosjean was originally scheduled to run alone on the 4th and final day, but due to the limited running that Gutierrez had had on the first 2 days, Grosjean ran in the morning and then Gutierrez in the afternoon, where they went 10th and 11th fastest. 2 weeks later, the team travelled to Australia for the first Grand Prix of the season. More than 2 years after their formation, Haas F1 Team were now participating in a Grand Prix weekend. FP1 was confounded with rain, so Gutierrez completed only 8 laps on the intermediate tyres to go 18th and Grosjean 6 laps on the intermediates to go 20th. The rain remained for FP2 where Gutierrez completed 10 laps to go 11th and Grosjean 8 laps to go 13th. At the start of FP3, Grosjean collided with the manner of Rio Haryanto while exiting his pit garage, which necessitated a change of floor on the car. Gutierrez completed 21 laps in the first dry running of the weekend to go 18th, and Grosjean eventually got out and did 11 laps to go 19th. This Grand Prix saw the debut of a controversial new experimental knockout-style qualifying format, in which instead of the 6 slowest cars being eliminated at the end of Q1 and Q2, the slowest driver would be eliminated every 90 seconds. The hope was that it would encourage drivers to set continuous laps rather than one run at the start and another at the end. Both drivers immediately went out along with the rest of the field. They were both spared elimination after their first runs, but Gutierrez was the third driver to be eliminated, running out of time to do a second run and lined up 20th ahead of both Manners. Grosjean was 3/10 faster on his first run, but was then eliminated himself halfway through his second run, which he was not allowed to finish and would have saved him from elimination, so he joined Gutierrez on the penultimate row of the grid. The new qualifying format was panned after qualifying had finished, as it created large periods where nobody was on track and drivers were continuously getting caught out and finishing their runs early even when still in contention. There were calls to immediately revert to the original format, but it was still planned to go ahead in Bahrain. Race day was dry and sunny and both drivers opted to start on the soft tyres. The Red Bull of Daniel Kvyat broke down on the formation lap and failed to start the race, which moved both drivers up to 18th and 19th and triggered a second formation lap. Both drivers were passed by Pascal Wehrlein off the line and Gutierrez almost passed Grosjean at turn 1. The Renault of Kevin Magnussen got a puncture on the run to turn 3 and was passed by both drivers there. Gutierrez passed Grosjean at turn 3 as he was boxed in by Magnussen. Gutierrez then experienced a sudden drop in power on the run to turn 13 and was passed by Grosjean and Haryanto and ended up 3.5 seconds behind Haryanto at the end of lap 1. This increased to 11 seconds at the end of lap 2. The power came back on lap 3 and he rapidly closed back up to Haryanto. Gutierrez got within DRS range of Haryanto on lap 8, while Grosjean had created a 2-second advantage over him and was right on Felipe Nasr's tail. Carlos Sainz pitted on lap 8 and came up behind both drivers. Grosjean passed Nasr at turn 1 on lap 10. Sainz passed Gutierrez at turn 3. Nasr pitted at the end of the lap, which gave a place to Gutierrez. He then passed Haryanto at turn 1 on lap 11. Felipe Massa, Pascal Wehrlein and Marcus Ericsson all pitted on lap 11, which moved Grosjean up to 14th and Gutierrez to 16th, split by Massa. Fernando Alonso and Jolyon Palmer pitted on lap 12 and came out 6 seconds behind Gutierrez, which gave both drivers 2 more places, but Grosjean was then passed by Massa at turn 1 on lap 13. Jenson Button pitted on lap 15 and Nico Hülkenberg and Sergio Perez on lap 16, which gave both drivers 3 more places. Alonso had been closing up to Gutierrez on fresher tyres ever since his pit stop. On lap 17, he attempted to pass Gutierrez at turn 3. While switching from the inside to try and pass round the outside, he clipped his right front wheel with Gutierrez's left rear, which damaged Gutierrez's wheel and tore Alonso's off. Gutierrez span uncontrollably into the gravel trap, while Alonso crashed into the barriers, which tore all 3 other wheels off and caused him to dig into the gravel, which sent him into an airborne barrel roll with the car landing upside down against the barriers in the escape road. Gutierrez was unharmed, but Alonso suffered fractured ribs, which forced him to miss the next round. Valtteri Bottas pitted, which gave Grosjean another place. The safety car was brought out on lap 18, but this quickly became a red flag, so the remaining drivers all lined up in the pit lane. Grosjean found himself in 9th place and had effectively been given a free stop as the only driver not to pit before the red flag was called. The race resumed 20 minutes later, with Grosjean now on medium tyres. Kimi Raikkonen retired on lap 22, which moved Grosjean up to 8th. Felipe Massa in front slowly pulled away from Grosjean, and he was being pressured by Nico Hülkenberg and Valtteri Bottas behind. Carlos Sainz pitted on lap 31 and Max Verstappen on lap 32, which moved Grosjean up to 6th. By saving his tyres at the start, Grosjean managed to make them last the remaining 39 laps and pull slightly away from Hülkenberg at the end to finish 6th, 13 seconds behind Massa and 1 minute and 12 seconds behind race winner Nico Rosberg. This was a debut race of 2 halves for Haas. One of their drivers was involved in a massive accident, but as a result of that, their other driver lucked his way into a points finish, which initially gave them 5th place in the Constructors' Championship and one of the strongest debut races of any team in Formula 1 history, and for it he was also voted Driver of the Weekend. Gutierrez was forced to use a new chassis for the Bahrain Grand Prix due to the damage sustained to the original in the accident in Australia, most of which was done by the recovery crane rather than the accident itself. Gutierrez then experienced a power loss towards the end of FP1 and Grosjean lost a small piece of bodywork. In FP2, Grosjean's front wing broke after hitting a curb at the wrong angle, and he then had smoke coming from the back of the car towards the end of the session due to an oil leak. Both drivers advanced into Q2 for the first time in qualifying, with Grosjean going 11th fastest and Gutierrez 13th fastest in Q1. Gutierrez was then the 3rd driver to be eliminated in Q2 to qualify 13th. Grosjean was only 0.2 of a second faster, but was eliminated 6 minutes later to qualify 9th, as only the top 8 qualified for Q3 under this format. Both drivers started the race on super soft tyres. Sebastian Vettel's car broke down on the formation lap, which moved Grosjean and Gutierrez up to 8th and 12th, and Jolyon Palmer behind in 19th then pulled into the pits at the end of the formation lap with a hydraulic failure, which reduced the field down to 20 cars before the race had even started. Both drivers had good starts, as Grosjean passed Nico Hülkenberg off the line and Gutierrez passed a deputising Stoffel Van Dorn and the Toro Rossos of Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. Grosjean then attempted to pass Kimi Raikkonen at turn 1. A poor starting pole sitter Lewis Hamilton made contact with Valtteri Bottas on the exit of turn 1 and was passed by both drivers at turn 2. Gutierrez then passed Hülkenberg himself at turn 5. Hamilton recovered to pass Gutierrez at the final corner, leaving Grosjean 6th and Gutierrez 8th at the end of lap 1. Hamilton then passed Grosjean at turn 1 on lap 4. Daniel Ricciardo pitted on lap 6 and Felipe Massa on lap 7, which gave both drivers 2 places. A piece of bodywork came off Hamilton's car at turn 12 on lap 8 and was hit by Grosjean, who had got within DRS range of Bottas. Bottas then pitted and was followed in by Gutierrez, who went on to a second set of super soft tyres. He had a 9.4 second stop and came out in 18th. A lap later, he then pulled into the pits again to retire with a front brake failure. Grosjean pitted from 4th on lap 11 for a second set of super soft tyres and came out in 9th. Kevin Magnussen pitted on lap 12 and Marcus Ericsson on lap 13, which moved him up to 7th. Grosjean passed Daniel Kvyat on lap 16 on much fresher tyres. He then passed Massa at turn 11 on lap 17, who was on the slower medium tyre. He then closed up to Ricciardo, who was on the soft tyre, and passed him at turn 4 on lap 24 to get into 4th place. Grosjean made his second stop on lap 27 for a third set of super soft tyres and came out in 8th. He just avoided getting undercut by Verstappen, who pitted a lap earlier, and passed Bottas at turn 1 on lap 29. Massa then pitted, which moved him up to 6th. He then closed up to and passed Kvyat, who was on worn softs at turn 1 on lap 33. He was then running alone with Ricciardo 9 seconds in front and Verstappen 6 seconds behind. Grosjean made his third and final stop on lap 41 for a set of medium tyres. It was a slow stop as the left rear tyre was fitted incorrectly on the first attempt and had to be fitted again, so he came out in 8th just in front of Van Dorn. Kvyat pitted on lap 44, which gave Grosjean a place. He then passed Massa for the second time at turn 1 on lap 46. Verstappen then pitted, which moved Grosjean up to 5th. Verstappen made a late charge at Grosjean but finished 2 seconds behind. Grosjean had gone one better than in Australia, and in a much more convincing fashion, and was voted driver of the weekend once again after making 8 on-track overtakes. Haas remained 5th in the Constructors' Championship, and Grosjean was up to 5th in the Drivers' Championship as well. Gutierrez, by contrast, found himself languishing in 22nd after 2 consecutive retirements. Next up was the Chinese Grand Prix. Gutierrez's bad luck continued as he got no running in FP1 due to an electronics issue. He then did only 4 laps in FP2 before the rear brakes caught fire. Heavy rain then came in FP3, so Grosjean didn't go out, but Gutierrez did some running to make up for the lack of track time on Friday. For this race, the decision was made to revert to the previous qualifying format, which is still in use to this day. Pascal Wehrlein crashed on his hot lap on the drying track, which delayed qualifying for 20 minutes, and Lewis Hamilton did not set a time, which left 20 runners. Gutierrez was eliminated in Q1 and lined up 18th in between the Renaults. Grosjean was 3/10 faster to go 14th in Q1 and then went 14th again in Q2 after not getting a second run due to a red flag. Both drivers started on soft tyres. Gutierrez passed Felipe Nasr and Kevin Magnussen off the line. He attempted to pass Grosjean at turn 1 while side by side with Marcus Ericsson and Magnussen, but pulled out of it and was passed by both of them. Ericsson then passed Grosjean too. Kimi Raikkonen and Sebastian Vettel collided at turn 2, which broke Raikkonen's front wing off and caused him to be passed by both drivers. Grosjean then clipped his wing against Ericsson's right rear tyre, which broke off his front wing end plate. Gutierrez was repassed by Magnussen at turn 2 and then by Wehrlein at turn 3. Gutierrez was passed by Jolyon Palmer at turn 6 and Grosjean by him and Wehrlein at turn 7. Rio Haryanto then passed Grosjean at turn 10. Grosjean pitted for a new front wing and second set of soft tyres along with Raikkonen, Hamilton and Nasr, and was passed by Raikkonen and Hamilton after a 38-second stop where they struggled to get the wing off, leaving Gutierrez 17th and Grosjean 21st at the end of lap 1. Daniel Ricciardo suffered a tyre blowout on the back straight on lap 3 and pitted, which moved Gutierrez up a place. Gutierrez then passed Palmer at turn 7. The safety car was then brought out to clear the debris from the back straight. Numerous drivers dived into the pits, which catapulted Gutierrez up to 5th and allowed Grosjean to catch back up to the pack. Hamilton pitted on laps 5 and 6, which moved Grosjean up to 20th. The race resumed at the end of lap 8. Hamilton quickly passed Grosjean at turn 1 and Daniel Kvyat passed Gutierrez at turn 2. Sergio Perez passed Gutierrez on the back straight on lap 11 and Vettel passed him at turn 1 on lap 12. Valtteri Bottas then passed him at turn 6 and Jenson Button passed him on the back straight. Carlos Sainz passed him at turn 2 on lap 13, which meant he was now out of the points. Ricciardo passed him at turn 6 and then Hamilton at turn 7. Nico Hülkenberg passed him at turn 13, which meant he'd gone from 5th to 14th in less than 5 laps. Raikkonen pitted on lap 14, which gave Grosjean a place. He then passed Palmer at turn 1. Gutierrez was then passed by Max Verstappen at turn 6. Wehrlein pitted on lap 15, which gave both drivers a place. Grosjean passed Rio Haryanto at turn 1 on lap 16. Fernando Alonso pitted on lap 16, which gave both drivers another place. Vettel pitted on lap 17, which gave Gutierrez a place, and Hülkenberg also pitted, which gave both drivers a place. Vettel then passed Gutierrez at turn 10. Perez pitted on lap 18, which gave Gutierrez another place. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of soft tyres on lap 19 and came out 20th. Grosjean then pitted on lap 20 for a third set of soft tyres and came out in 21st. Magnussen and Nasr also pitted, which moved Gutierrez up to 17th. He then passed Wehrlein at turn 13 on lap 21. Palmer pitted on lap 24, which moved Grosjean up to 20th. Hülkenberg pitted on lap 26, Button and Wehrlein pitted on lap 27, and Ericsson and Perez on lap 28, which moved Grosjean up to 17th and Gutierrez to 12th. Hamilton and Bottas then pitted on lap 30, which briefly moved Gutierrez up to 10th. Hülkenberg passed Grosjean at turn 6 on lap 31, and Bottas passed Gutierrez at turn 13. Ericsson then passed Grosjean at turn 1 on lap 32. Alonso pitted on lap 32, which gave Gutierrez a place. Hamilton then passed Gutierrez at turn 6. Sainz then pitted at the end of lap 33, which gave him the place back. Grosjean also pitted on lap 33 for a set of super soft tyres and came out 22nd and lapped. Gutierrez pitted for a set of super soft tyres on lap 34 and came out 17th. Magnussen pitted on lap 35, which gave both drivers a place. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at turn 7 on lap 37. Grosjean then passed Palmer there and then Haryanto at turn 13 on lap 38. Nasser pitted on lap 40, which moved Grosjean up to 18th. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of super soft tyres on lap 43 and came out 17th and lapped. Wehrlein pitted at the same time, which moved Grosjean up to 16th. Gutierrez passed Grosjean at turn 6. Grosjean then pitted for a second set of super soft tyres and came out 20th. Gutierrez managed to undercut Hülkenberg, who pitted on lap 46. Grosjean passed Nasser at turn 10 on lap 47. Gutierrez then passed Nasser at turn 6 on lap 50. The tables turned in this race, as Gutierrez had a clean race where he set the 4th fastest lap and came home in 14th. Grosjean's race was interrupted with various problems and he struggled with balance to come home 19th. Despite this, the team had achieved their first double finish. The team remained 5th in the Constructors' Championship despite not scoring any points, but Grosjean dropped to 8th in the Drivers' Championship and Gutierrez remained 22nd despite seeing the checkered flag for the first time. Next up was the Russian Grand Prix, where the team brought a new front wing to try out. Both drivers advanced into Q2 in qualifying and lined up on the 8th row of the grid with Grosjean 15th and Gutierrez 16th. Grosjean started on super soft tyres and Gutierrez on softs. Gutierrez had a poor start and was passed by Kevin Magnussen, Jolyon Palmer and Felipe Nasr at turn 1, and Grosjean passed Nico Hülkenberg there. Gutierrez was squeezed in between Palmer and Rio Haryanto on the run to turn 1. He locked up when braking and ran into the back of Hülkenberg. Hülkenberg span around and collided with Gutierrez and Haryanto, which took Hülkenberg and Haryanto out of the race. Grosjean cut across the runoff area at turn 2 and rejoined in 14th. Daniel Kvyat sent Sebastian Vettel into the wall and out of the race through the long turn 4. Grosjean passed Jenson Button here and then Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez and Daniel Kvyat at turn 5. The new virtual safety car was then called for the first time with Grosjean in 9th and Gutierrez recovering in 19th with a broken front wing. This then became a full safety car. Daniel Ricciardo pitted along with several other drivers, which moved Grosjean up to 8th. Gutierrez pitted for a new front wing and a set of medium tyres. The race resumed at the end of lap 3. Kvyat served a 10-second stop-go penalty on lap 8, which moved Gutierrez up to 18th. Gutierrez was then awarded a drive-through penalty for causing the collision with Hülkenberg. He served it on lap 9 and came out in front of Kvyat. Grosjean pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 17 and came out in 13th, just behind Magnussen who undercut him. Kvyat caught and passed Gutierrez at turn 2 on lap 18. Button pitted on lap 20, which moved Grosjean up a place. Sergio Perez pitted on lap 27 and Marcus Ericsson on lap 28, which moved Grosjean up to 10th. Grosjean then passed Ricciardo at turn 4 just after Ricciardo was passed by Magnussen. Gutierrez was then lapped on lap 28. Max Verstappen retired on lap 34, which gave both drivers a place. Pascal Wehrlein pitted on lap 39 and came up behind Gutierrez. Grosjean was lapped on lap 47 and defended from Perez for almost half the race to finish 8th. Gutierrez never recovered from the first lap clash and subsequent penalty and was a minute further behind in 17th. Grosjean moved up to 7th in the Drivers' Championship, but Gutierrez remained in 22nd. For the Spanish Grand Prix, Haas brought a new rear wing to try out and upgraded Ferrari power units. Both drivers advanced into Q2 once again, with Grosjean qualifying 14th and Gutierrez 0.3 of a second slower in 16th. Both drivers started on soft tyres. Gutierrez passed Kevin Magnussen on the run to turn 1, and both drivers passed Daniel Kvyat at turn 1. Grosjean passed Nico Hülkenberg around turn 3, and Gutierrez was repassed by Magnussen and Kvyat there. Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg collided at turn 4 and took each other out of the race, which gave both drivers 2 places and brought out the safety car, with Grosjean in 10th and Gutierrez in 14th. The race resumed at the end of lap 3. Kvyat attempted to pass on Grosjean at turn 10 on lap 4. Gutierrez ran slightly wide at turn 13 on lap 8, which allowed Jolyon Palmer to close up to him and pass him at turn 1 on lap 9. Sergio Perez and Kvyat pitted on lap 9, Sainz, Jenson Button and Nico Hülkenberg on lap 10, Daniel Ricciardo, Fernando Alonso and Palmer on lap 11, and Max Verstappen, Kimi Raikkonen and Valtteri Bottas on lap 12, which briefly moved Grosjean up to 2nd and Gutierrez up to 5th. Ricciardo passed Grosjean at turn 1 on lap 14 and Verstappen passed him there on lap 15 and Raikkonen passed Gutierrez at the same time. Grosjean pitted for a new set of soft tyres on lap 15 and rejoined in 13th. Gutierrez then pitted for a second set of soft tyres on lap 16 and rejoined in 18th. Both drivers were on the alternate strategy, with the rest of the grid bar Marcus Ericsson on medium tyres. Grosjean passed Hülkenberg at turn 1 on lap 17. Gutierrez then passed Rio Haryanto at turn 4, Palmer at turn 5 on lap 18 and Marcus Ericsson at turn 1 on lap 19. Hülkenberg retired on lap 21, which moved Gutierrez up to 14th. He then passed Kvyat at turn 1 on lap 22 and Magnussen at turn 1 on lap 23 and was now 6 seconds behind Grosjean. Felipe Massa pitted on lap 25, which gave both drivers a place. Both of them rapidly closed up to Alonso in 9th. Grosjean pitted for a set of medium tyres on lap 29 and rejoined in 15th. Gutierrez also pitted along with Magnussen for a set of medium tyres on lap 30 and rejoined in 14th behind Grosjean. Grosjean passed Nasser at turn 1 on lap 32 and Gutierrez then passed him at turn 5. Gutierrez then passed Grosjean at turn 5 on lap 33 and then Palmer at turn 10, who was then passed by Grosjean at turn 13. Grosjean locked up at turn 7 on lap 36 and ran through the gravel trap and was passed by Kvyat. Button pitted on lap 36, which moved Gutierrez into the points. Grosjean's wing suddenly failed on lap 37. He was passed by Ericsson and Magnussen and pitted for a new front wing and a third set of soft tyres and rejoined lapped in 19th and last. Alonso pitted on lap 39, which gave Gutierrez 9th. Grosjean passed Haryanto at turn 1 on lap 39. Massa then pitted on lap 41, which moved Gutierrez into 8th. Grosjean passed Pascal Wehrlein at turn 1 on lap 43. Alonso retired on lap 46, which moved him into 16th. Magnussen pitted on lap 55, which gave him 15th. A lap later, he then pulled into the pits and out of the race with brake failure. Gutierrez's tyres started to go off the cliff and he was passed by Massa at turn 1 on lap 56. He was lapped on lap 60. Button then passed him at turn 10 on lap 61. Kvyat passed him at turn 5 on lap 62 and he finished out of the points in 11th. Haas dropped to 6th in the Constructors' Championship, Grosjean dropped to 10th in the Drivers' Championship and Gutierrez went up to 19th. A few days after the race, a 2-day in-season test took place at Catalonia. Grosjean ran on the first day and used a new chassis which he hoped would solve the handling issues he'd been experiencing. Gutierrez ran on the second day. Next up was the glamour of the Monaco Grand Prix. Gutierrez's car broke down in FP1, and Grosjean then crashed at the Nouvelle Chicane in FP2. 2 red flag sessions came in Q1 following a breakdown for Marcus Ericsson and a crash from Max Verstappen, but both drivers still advanced into Q2. Gutierrez outqualified Grosjean for the first time that year to go 12th, and Grosjean was 3/10 slower in 15th, but felt he was fast enough to get into Q3 but got traffic on both runs. Heavy rain came on Sunday, so the race started behind the safety car with all drivers on wet tyres. Daniel Kvyat pitted for a new steering wheel at the end of lap 1 which gave both drivers a place. The safety car came in at the end of lap 7 and the race was underway. Gutierrez passed Kimi Raikkonen at Massenet. Jolyon Palmer then crashed on the run to Saint-Devoux and the virtual safety car was called. Jenson Button pitted for intermediates on lap 8 which moved Grosjean up to 13th. The race resumed on lap 10. Kimi Raikkonen hit the barriers at the Lowe's hairpin and broke his front wing. Felipe Massa got blocked in behind which allowed Grosjean to pass him. Grosjean tried to pass Raikkonen around the outside of Mirabeau-Basse, but Massa rear-ended Raikkonen who knocked himself and Grosjean into the barriers. Grosjean reversed out and resumed undamaged in 15th, but Raikkonen retired. Verstappen pitted for intermediates on lap 12, which gave Grosjean a place. Sebastian Vettel then pitted for intermediates on lap 13, and Fernando Alonso on lap 14, which gave Gutierrez 2 places. Grosjean pitted for intermediates on lap 15 and rejoined in 19th. Nico Hülkenberg and Valtteri Bottas also pitted, which moved Gutierrez up to 6th. He then pitted for intermediates on lap 16 and rejoined in 10th. Massa pitted on lap 20, which moved Gutierrez up to 9th. Kevin Magnussen and Kvyat collided at Rascasse, which took Kvyat out of the race and gave Grosjean 2 places. The sun was now out and the track was rapidly drying. Grosjean passed Rio Haryanto at the Nouvelle Chicane on lap 25. Ericsson pitted on lap 29, which gave Grosjean another place. Perez pitted on lap 30, which moved Gutierrez up to 7th. Grosjean pitted as well on lap 30 for ultra soft tyres and rejoined lapped in 17th. Vettel, Nico Rosberg and Hülkenberg pitted on lap 31, which moved Gutierrez up to 4th. Gutierrez pitted for ultra-soft tyres on lap 32 and rejoined in 11th. Felipe Nasr also pitted, which moved Grosjean up to 16th. Verstappen crashed out on lap 35, which gave Grosjean another place. The virtual safety car was then deployed. The race resumed on lap 37. Grosjean passed Haryanto at the Nouvelle chicane and found himself stuck behind Pascal Wehrlein. Massa passed Gutierrez at the Nouvelle chicane on lap 41, putting him out of the points. The virtual safety car was briefly brought out on lap 49 after the Saubers collided at Rascasse. Gutierrez was lapped on lap 51. Grosjean was lapped for a second time on lap 54. The virtual safety car came out again briefly on lap 68 after a large plastic sheet fell onto the start-finish straight. Gutierrez lacked confidence on the ultra-softs and finished 11th for the second race in a row. Grosjean had his race ruined by Raikkonen and was then stuck behind Wehrlein for over 40 laps to finish 14th. Wehrlein was given 2 time penalties after the race, which promoted Grosjean to 13th. Haas dropped down to 8th in the Constructors' Championship. Grosjean dropped down to 11th in the Drivers' Championship and Gutierrez went up to 18th. Formula 1 then travelled across the Atlantic for the Canadian Grand Prix. Both drivers advanced into Q2 once again, with Gutierrez qualifying 14th and Grosjean 15th. A grid penalty for Daniel Kvyat moved them both up a place. Both drivers started on ultra-soft tyres. Kvyat passed both drivers off the line. Gutierrez locked up braking for turn 1 and narrowly avoided Kvyat and passed him there. Grosjean repassed Kvyat around the outside of turn 2. Kvyat then took the place back at turn 6. Grosjean then repassed him again at turn 12 on lap 2. Grosjean passed Gutierrez at turn 12 on lap 9. Jenson Button retired on the back straight on lap 10, which gave both drivers a place, and the virtual safety car was brought out. The race resumed on lap 12. Kimi Raikkonen immediately pitted, which gave both drivers a place. Kvyat then passed Gutierrez at turn 1 and Carlos Sainz passed him at turn 4. Raikkonen then passed him at the Le Pont-Le hairpin. Gutierrez pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 13 and rejoined in 19th. Marcus Ericsson pitted on lap 14 and Rio Haryanto on lap 15, which gave him 2 places. Raikkonen passed Grosjean at turn 12 on lap 16. He then pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 17 but stayed in 12th as Fernando Alonso pitted from in front and Sainz from behind, and Alonso had a slow stop. Jolyon Palmer pitted to retire just after, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Gutierrez passed Kevin Magnussen at turn 12 on lap 21. Perez pitted on lap 30, which moved Grosjean up to 11th. Gutierrez was first lapped on lap 33. Felipe Massa retired on lap 36, which gave both drivers a place. Perez then passed Grosjean at turn 1 on lap 37. Grosjean pitted for a set of ultra-soft tyres on lap 39 and rejoined lapped in 13th. Gutierrez pitted for a set of ultra-soft tyres on lap 41 and remained in 14th. Grosjean suffered another front wing failure on lap 46 and pitted for a new front wing and a second set of ultra-soft tyres but only lost a place to Gutierrez. Grosjean closed back up to Gutierrez on his fresher tyres and got within DRS range on lap 58. Both drivers were lapped for a second time on the back straight on lap 68, and 2 corners later finished the race in the same positions that they'd started it. The next round saw the return of the European Grand Prix after a 4-year absence, this time being held at the brand new Baku City circuit in Azerbaijan. Both drivers advanced into Q2 again in qualifying at a circuit that was new to everybody. Grosjean came within 600ths of Q3 to line up a season's best 11th. Gutierrez struggled and was 6/10 slower and lined up 15th, which became 14th after Carlos Sainz received a grid penalty. Both drivers started on super soft tyres. Grosjean had a slightly slow start and was passed by Fernando Alonso off the line. Gutierrez as well was passed by Felipe Nasr off the line. He locked up braking for turn 1 and got wedged in between Nico Hülkenberg in front and Rio Haryanto behind. He squeezed Haryanto against the wall, which damaged Haryanto's front wing and damaged his front right end plate and floor, hitting Hülkenberg, who then lightly snagged Grosjean. Gutierrez was then passed by Jenson Button on the exit of turn 1. Grosjean repassed Alonso at turn 3. Gutierrez was then side by side with Button on the back straight but yielded in turn 3. He tried to pass at turn 4 but locked up again and allowed Button back through and was also passed by Pascal Wehrlein. Grosjean passed Daniel Kvyat at turn 3 on lap 4, putting him in the points. Gutierrez then passed Kvyat at turn 7 on lap 5. Max Verstappen and Alonso pitted on lap 5 and Daniel Ricciardo and Button on lap 6, which moved Grosjean to 8th and Gutierrez to 13th. Gutierrez was then passed by Marcus Ericsson at turn 1 on lap 7. Felipe Massa and Nasr pitted on lap 7, which moved Grosjean to 7th and Gutierrez to 13th. Grosjean was passed by Hülkenberg at turn 1 on lap 8, and Gutierrez was then passed by Jolly and Palmer at turn 2. Verstappen then passed him at turn 7. Gutierrez pitted for a set of soft tyres and a new front wing on lap 8 and rejoined in 21st and last. Kimi Raikkonen also pitted, which moved Grosjean up to 7th. Ricciardo then passed Grosjean at turn 3 on lap 10. Grosjean pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 10 and rejoined in 18th. Palmer pitted on lap 11, which moved him up to 17th. Gutierrez passed Haryanto at turn 1 on lap 16. Ericsson pitted on lap 16 and Verstappen on lap 20, which gave Grosjean 2 places. Grosjean then passed Wehrlein at turn 1 on lap 22. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at turn 1 on lap 23. Alonso and Nasser pitted on lap 24 and Button on lap 25, which gave both drivers 3 places. Alonso then passed Gutierrez at turn 3 on lap 26. Grosjean was then forced to pit to clear debris out of the radiators and put on a set of medium tyres and rejoined in 19th. Button passed Gutierrez at turn 3 on lap 27. Nasser then passed Gutierrez at turn 3 on lap 28. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of super soft tyres on lap 29 and rejoined lapped in 20th. Wehrlein pitted at the same time, which moved Grosjean to 17th. Gutierrez passed Wehrlein at turn 1 on lap 31. Palmer pitted on lap 31, which gave a place to Grosjean. Sainz then retired, which gave a place to both drivers. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at turn 1 on lap 34. Grosjean passed Alonso at turn 1 on lap 41. Alonso repassed him at turn 2, but Grosjean took the place back at turn 3. He was then lapped on lap 42. Alonso then retired on lap 43, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Grosjean passed Magnussen at turn 1 on lap 47 and finished the race in 13th, with Gutierrez 29 seconds further back in 16th after running with damage the whole race. Next up was the Austrian Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton span in front of Grosjean in FP1, which sent Grosjean into a spin as well. Gutierrez had various problems which limited running. Heavy rain came in FP2, which then limited running further. Both drivers advanced into Q2 in qualifying once again. Gutierrez missed out on Q3 by only 0.06 of a second to line up 11th. Grosjean was 0.3 slower in 13th after going across the gravel on his first run and damaging the car's floor. On race day, Felipe Massa started from the pit lane, which moved both drivers up a place. Both drivers started on super soft tyres. Gutierrez went into anti-stall at the start and was passed by Pascal Wehrlein, Grosjean, Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz off the line. Grosjean passed Wehrlein at the Niki Lauda curve and Gutierrez was passed by Sergio Perez there. Gutierrez went onto the runoff on the corner exit and was passed by Kevin Magnussen, Jolyon Palmer, Marcus Ericsson and Felipe Nasser. Grosjean was repassed by Wehrlein at Remus. He repassed him at Schlossgold but was in turn passed there by Sainz and then Perez at turn 5. Wehrlein repassed him again at Rauch. Gutierrez passed Nasser at Rindt, which left Grosjean 13th and Gutierrez 19th at the end of lap 1. Alonso passed Grosjean at Schlossgold on lap 2. Massa passed Gutierrez at the Niki Lauda curve on lap 7. Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg pitted on lap 8, Jenson Button, Valtteri Bottas, Sainz and Perez on lap 9 and Nico Rosberg on lap 10, which moved Grosjean up to 7th and Gutierrez up to 13th. Ericsson ran wide at the Red Bull Mobile on lap 11 and was passed by Gutierrez, who then repassed Massa at the Niki Lauda curve on lap 12. Magnussen pitted at the same time and Palmer on lap 12, which moved Gutierrez to 8th, 5 seconds behind Grosjean. Wehrlein pitted on lap 13, which gave both drivers another place. Rosberg passed Gutierrez at Remus on lap 14. Daniel Ricciardo pitted on lap 14 and Max Verstappen on lap 15, which moved Grosjean up to 4th. Rosberg then passed Grosjean at Remus and Verstappen passed him at Schlossgold. Ricciardo then passed him at Remus on lap 17. Gutierrez's tyres started to go off and he was passed on lap 18 by Nasser and Button at the Niki Lauda curve and Hülkenberg at Remus. He was then passed by Bottas at Remus on lap 19 and Alonso at Schlossgold on lap 20. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of super soft tyres on lap 21 and rejoined in 21st and last. Wehrlein pitted on lap 23 and Hülkenberg on lap 24, which moved him up to 19th. Button passed Grosjean at Schlossgold on lap 25 and Hülkenberg passed Gutierrez there. Sebastian Vettel suffered a race-ending tyre blowout on the start-finish straight on lap 27, which gave both drivers a place and brought out the safety car. Grosjean took the chance to pit for a set of soft tyres and rejoined in 10th. Haryanto pitted on lap 28, which moved Gutierrez up to 18th. Sainz also pitted on lap 28, which moved Grosjean up to 9th. The race resumed at the end of lap 31. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at Remus and Palmer at Schlossgold on lap 33. He then passed Magnussen at Remus on lap 35. On lap 36, Grosjean received a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Gutierrez pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 41 and rejoined in 20th and last. Grosjean passed Nasser at Schlossgold on lap 42. Nasser then pitted on lap 43 and rejoined behind Gutierrez. Magnussen pitted on lap 49, Hulkenberg, Palmer, Ericsson and Haryanto on lap 50 and Bottas on lap 51, which moved Grosjean to 7th and Gutierrez to 14th. Massa then pitted on lap 56, which gave Gutierrez 13th and he started chasing down Wehrlein. Gutierrez passed Alonso at the Niki Lauda curve on lap 64, who then retired. He was lapped on lap 67. Lewis Hamilton and Rosberg were battling for the lead and made contact at Remus on the final lap. Rosberg's front wing was destroyed in the contact and he blocked in Bottas and Wehrlein, which allowed Gutierrez to almost pass Wehrlein at Rauch. At the same time, Perez spun off at Schlossgold, which meant Grosjean finished 7th and Gutierrez 11th. Grosjean retained 7th even with the time penalty, as Sainz was 7.5 seconds behind. Grosjean moved up to 10th in the Drivers' Championship, but Gutierrez dropped to 19th. It was now time for the team's unofficial second home race, the British Grand Prix. For this, Ferrari gave the team upgraded power units. Development driver Charles Leclerc made his Grand Prix weekend debut by standing in for Gutierrez in FP1, which was also his first experience of a Formula 1 car. Grosjean and Gutierrez took up their regular spots on row 7 on the grid, with Grosjean 13th and Gutierrez 2/10 slower in 14th. Race day was dry and sunny, but a huge downpour 20 minutes before the race start meant the race was started behind the safety car with everyone on wet tyres. The safety car came in at the end of lap 5 with the sun out again. Grosjean and Gutierrez immediately dived into the pits for intermediate tyres along with numerous other drivers. Double stacking cost Gutierrez time, which meant Grosjean rejoined in 19th and Gutierrez in 22nd and last. Grosjean moved up to 17th after the next batch of drivers pitted on lap 6. Pascal Wehrlein spun off and out of the race at Abbey on lap 7, which moved Gutierrez to 21st and brought out the virtual safety car. The rest of the grid pitted, moving Grosjean up to 16th. The race resumed on lap 8. Rio Haryanto span at Club on lap 9 and was passed by Gutierrez. Marcus Ericsson pitted at the same time, which moved him up to 19th. Grosjean pitted for medium tyres on lap 16 and rejoined in 18th. Valtteri Bottas, Felipe Nasser and Jolyon Palmer pitted as well, which moved Gutierrez up to 50th. Gutierrez then pitted for mediums on lap 17 and rejoined behind Grosjean in 18th. Grosjean's gearbox gave up at Copse on lap 18 and he pulled over and out of the race. Gutierrez now had Kevin Magnussen 3 seconds in front and Palmer 20 seconds behind after a botched pit stop. He was lapped on lap 28. Gutierrez slowly closed in on Magnussen and passed him at Stowe on lap 39. Magnussen repassed him at Brooklands on lap 40, but Gutierrez took the place back at Copse. Magnussen then pitted. Gutierrez went on to finish a disappointing race for the team in 17th. A few days after the race, a 2-day Young Drivers Test was held at Silverstone. Haas's other development driver Santino Ferrucci got his first go in the car on both days, while Charles Leclerc drove in the Ferrari. Next up was the Hungarian Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc ran in FP1 in place of Gutierrez once again. A huge, unexpected downpour midday on Saturday delayed qualifying by 20 minutes. It was soon stopped after getting underway due to poor visibility. When it got underway again, both drivers set times on full wet tyres before a crash from Marcus Ericsson triggered another red flag. Q1 resumed for a second time again, but was quickly red flagged again due to a crash from Felipe Massa. Q1 resumed for a third time with everyone switching to intermediates. Grosjean went 5th fastest and Gutierrez was 3 seconds slower in 11th. Rio Haryanto then crashed at turn 10 and the red flag was called for the 4th time at the end of the session, but both drivers advanced into Q2. The track dried in Q2 and Grosjean came within a 10th of Q3 and qualified 11th. Gutierrez struggled and was 1.2 seconds slower in 15th. Both drivers started on super soft tyres. Gutierrez passed Daniel Kvyat and Kimi Raikkonen off the line and Sergio Perez on the run to turn 2. Perez repassed Gutierrez at turn 9, but Gutierrez took the place back at turn 12. Grosjean passed a malfunctioning Jensen Button at turn 1 on lap 5 and Raikkonen repassed Gutierrez there. Gutierrez then passed Button on the run to turn 2. Grosjean pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 14 with Nico Hülkenberg right in front after holding off Raikkonen for 10 laps and rejoined in 18th and immediately passed Rio Haryanto at turn 1. Gutierrez pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 15 and rejoined in front of Grosjean in 16th. Kevin Magnussen and Kvyat pitted on lap 24 and Felipe Massa on lap 25, which gave both drivers 3 places. Grosjean was being pressured by Magnussen and pitted along with Magnussen for a second set of soft tyres on lap 36 and came out lapped in 16th. Gutierrez pitted for soft tyres a lap later and rejoined just in front. Felipe Nasr pitted on lap 39, which gave both drivers a place, and Perez pitted on lap 40 and came out in between both drivers. Kvyat pitted on lap 46, which gave both drivers a place. 10th place Jolyon Palmer spanned at turn 4 on lap 48 and rejoined in between Perez and Grosjean. Perez had been pressurising Gutierrez for over 20 laps and passed him at turn 1 on lap 63. A largely uneventful race ended with Gutierrez 12th and Grosjean 11 seconds behind in 14th. However, after the race, Gutierrez was given a 5-second time penalty for ignoring blue flags, which demoted him to 13th. Grosjean also moved down to 11th in the Drivers' Championship. The final race before the summer break was the German Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc took over from Gutierrez in FP1 for the third race in a row, and Grosjean had limited running in FP2 due to a water pipe leak. He then had a gearbox failure in FP3 which needed to be replaced before qualifying. Both drivers made it into Q2 in qualifying once again, and Gutierrez came within 0.2 of advancing into Q3. Grosjean was only 0.2 slow but qualified 15th. He then received a 5-place grid penalty for replacing the gearbox and lined up 20th. Gutierrez started on soft tyres and Grosjean on super softs. Gutierrez had a terrible start and was 17th coming out of the Nord curve. Grosjean passed Haryanto and Wehrlein off the line but was in turn passed by Marcus Ericsson. He went wide at the Nord curve and was passed by Felipe Nasr, Wehrlein and Haryanto but got around Ericsson. He then repassed Haryanto at the hairpin and Gutierrez was passed by Nasr at the Sachs curve, leaving them 18th and 20th at the end of lap 1. Grosjean passed Wehrlein and Gutierrez at the hairpin on lap 2. Palmer pitted at the end of lap 2 which gave both drivers a place. Grosjean passed Nasr at the hairpin on lap 4 and Daniel Kvyat at the Sachs curve on lap 6. Kvyat and Nasr pitted on lap 7 which gave 2 places to Gutierrez. Sergio Perez pitted on lap 8, Carlos Sainz and Felipe Massa on lap 9 and Kevin Magnussen on lap 11 which gave both drivers 4 more places. Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hülkenberg pitted on lap 12 with Hülkenberg rejoining behind both drivers and Bottas rejoining in between them. Jenson Button pitted on lap 13 which gave both drivers another place. Hülkenberg passed Gutierrez at the hairpin on lap 14. Kimi Raikkonen pitted on lap 14 and rejoined behind Grosjean. Fernando Alonso pitted at the same time which gave both drivers another place. Raikkonen quickly passed Grosjean at the hairpin. Bottas then passed him there on lap 16. Grosjean pitted from 8th on lap 17 for a set of soft tyres and rejoined in 16th. Button passed Gutierrez at the hairpin on lap 18. Grosjean passed Massa at turn 7 on lap 21. Alonso attempted to pass Gutierrez at the hairpin on lap 22 and completed the move at Mobile 1. Perez then passed him at the hairpin on lap 23. Grosjean then passed Sainz there. Magnussen passed Gutierrez at the Parabolica on lap 25. Grosjean then passed him at Mobile 1. Gutierrez pitted from 14th on lap 25 for a set of super soft tyres and rejoined in 18th. Massa and Wehrlein pitted on lap 26 which moved him up to 60th. Perez pitted on lap 27 which gave a place to Grosjean. Alonso and Kvyat then pitted on lap 28 which gave a place each to Grosjean and Gutierrez. Sainz pitted on lap 29 which gave another place to Gutierrez. Alonso passed Grosjean at the hairpin on lap 32. Magnussen pitted on lap 32 which gave a place to both drivers. Perez then passed Grosjean at the hairpin on lap 33. Gutierrez then passed Grosjean at turn 2 on lap 36. Grosjean was lapped on lap 43. Perez then pitted which gave a place to Gutierrez. Grosjean pitted as well for a second set of super soft tyres and rejoined in 16th. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of super soft tyres on lap 47 and rejoined lapped in 14th, 7.5 seconds ahead of Grosjean. Kvyat pitted on lap 49 which gave a place to Grosjean. Gutierrez passed Magnussen at the hairpin on lap 51. Sainz then pitted which gave a place to both drivers. Grosjean then passed Magnussen at Mercedes on lap 54 and was now 7 seconds behind Gutierrez. Gutierrez slowly pulled away from Grosjean and passed Alonso at the hairpin on the final lap to finish 11th, with Grosjean 9 seconds behind in 13th. Haas entered the summer break 8th in the Constructors' Championship with 28 points. Grosjean was 12th in the Drivers' Championship, having gotten all the team's points single-handedly, while Gutierrez was languishing in 19th. The first race after the summer break was the Belgian Grand Prix. Gutierrez was given a 5-place grid penalty for qualifying due to blocking Pascal Wehrlein through Raidillon in FP3 and forcing him onto the grass. Both drivers advanced into Q2 once again, with Grosjean qualifying 11th and Gutierrez a quarter of a second slower in 13th, being demoted to 18th with his penalty. Both drivers started on soft tyres. Gutierrez passed a rookie Esteban Ocon and Wehrlein off the line. Max Verstappen hit Kimi Raikkonen at La Source, who then hit teammate Sebastian Vettel and sent him into a spin. Grosjean passed Vettel, Valtteri Bottas, Jenson Button and Sergio Perez here, and Gutierrez got past Carlos Sainz. Wehrlein and Ocon both passed Gutierrez on the run to Eau Rouge. Both drivers then passed a damaged Kimi Raikkonen on the Kemmel Straight. Grosjean braked a bit late for Lecombe and went across the runoff area. Jenson Button and Wehrlein crashed out there, which gave 2 places to Gutierrez. Gutierrez then passed Ocon at turn 13. Verstappen pitted at the end of lap 1, leaving Grosjean 5th and Gutierrez 11th. Bottas passed Grosjean at Lecombe on lap 2. As this happened, Sainz suffered a race-ending tyre blowout which put Gutierrez in the points and brought out the virtual safety car. Felipe Massa pitted, which gave both drivers a place. The race resumed on lap 4 and Perez passed Grosjean on the Kemmel Straight. Kevin Magnussen crashed heavily at Raidillon on lap 6 right in front of Gutierrez, which brought out the safety car. Grosjean took the chance to pit for a second set of soft tyres and rejoined in 12th. Perez and Jolyon Palmer pitted as well, which moved Gutierrez up to 5th. Gutierrez then pitted for a second set of soft tyres on lap 7 and rejoined in 13th. Bottas pitted as well, which moved Grosjean up to 10th. The race was red flagged on lap 9 as the tyre barriers at Raidillon had been compromised, so the drivers lined up in the pit lane. The race resumed 15 minutes later behind the safety car, and the safety car came in at the end of lap 10. Grosjean passed Palmer at Lecombe on lap 12. Gutierrez then passed Palmer there on lap 15. Vettel passed Grosjean on the Kemmel Straight on lap 16. Bottas passed Grosjean there on lap 17, and then Gutierrez did on lap 18. Raikkonen attempted to pass Grosjean at Lecombe on lap 19, but they touched wheels. Raikkonen did then pass him there on lap 20. Kvyat pitted on lap 21, which gave both drivers a place. Raikkonen passed Gutierrez on the Kemmel Straight on lap 22. Gutierrez pitted for a set of medium tyres on lap 22 and rejoined in 16th. Massa pitted as well and rejoined behind Grosjean. He quickly passed Grosjean at Pouhon along with Verstappen. Grosjean then pitted for a set of medium tyres and rejoined in 16th. Felipe Nasr pitted as well, and then Ocon on lap 24, moving Gutierrez to 13th and Grosjean to 15th, 8 seconds behind. Gutierrez passed Kvyat at Lecombe on lap 26. Verstappen pitted on lap 27 and rejoined behind Grosjean. Verstappen passed Grosjean at La Source on lap 29. Grosjean then passed Palmer at Lecombe on lap 31. Kvyat pitted on lap 35, which gave a place to Grosjean. Verstappen passed Gutierrez at Lecombe on lap 36. Grosjean closed in at the end, and the two drivers finished 2.5 seconds apart in 12th and 13th. As a result of this, Grosjean dropped to 13th in the Drivers' Championship. It was now time for another unofficial home race for the team, the Italian Grand Prix. The team brought a new rear wing for the low downforce circuit. Grosjean spun off at the Ascari chicane early on in FP3 after the gearbox seized up. Both drivers advanced into Q2 in qualifying once again, but Gutierrez also went one better and gave the team their first ever Q3 appearance by qualifying 10th. Grosjean qualified 12th and then took a 5-place grid penalty for replacing the gearbox. Gutierrez started on super soft tyres and Grosjean on softs. Gutierrez had an abysmal start and was passed by every driver except Esteban Ocon off the line. Grosjean, by contrast, had a far better start and passed Daniel Kvyat, Carlos Sainz and Jenson Button off the line. Sainz repassed him through Variante del Rettifilo, but Grosjean took the place back at Variante della Roggia. Button was pushed onto the gravel at the first Lesmo and was passed by Gutierrez, leaving Grosjean 13th and Gutierrez 20th at the end of lap 1. Grosjean passed Pascal Wehrlein at Variante del Rettifilo on lap 2. Felipe Nasr and Jolyon Palmer collided there just in front of Gutierrez and took each other out of the race, which gave Gutierrez 2 more places. Button passed Gutierrez at Variante del Rettifilo on lap 6. Both drivers then passed Kevin Magnussen there on lap 7. Gutierrez passed Kvyat at Variante del Rettifilo on lap 7. Valtteri Bottas, Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso pitted on lap 13, Nico Hülkenberg on lap 14 and Sergio Perez and Button on lap 15, which moved Grosjean to 7th and Gutierrez to 13th. Verstappen passed Gutierrez at Variante del Rettifilo on lap 16. Daniel Ricciardo and Felipe Massa pitted on lap 16, which moved Grosjean up to 5th. Gutierrez then pitted as well for soft tyres and rejoined in 19th. Gutierrez passed Kvyat at the Ascari chicane on lap 18. Bottas passed Grosjean on the start-finish straight on lap 19, and Ricciardo then passed him at the Ascari chicane. Perez passed Grosjean at Variante del Rettifilo, and Verstappen passed him at Variante della Roggia on lap 22. Gutierrez then passed Ocon at the Ascari chicane. Sainz and Marcus Ericsson pitted on lap 23, which gave 2 more places to Gutierrez. Massa passed Grosjean on the start-finish straight on lap 24, and Hülkenberg passed him at Variante della Roggia on lap 26, putting him out of the points. Wehrlein retired on lap 27, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Alonso passed Grosjean at the Ascari chicane on lap 28. Grosjean then pitted for a set of super soft tyres and rejoined in 14th, 7 seconds behind Gutierrez. Alonso pitted on lap 33, which gave both drivers a place. Gutierrez pitted with Grosjean only 3 seconds behind for a second set of super soft tyres on lap 34 and rejoined lapped in 16th. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at Variante del Recifino on lap 36. Button pitted on lap 38, which gave a place to Grosjean. Sainz then pitted on lap 39, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Grosjean was lapped on lap 47. Alonso pitted on lap 49, which gave a place to Gutierrez, and an ultimately disappointing race for the team ended with Grosjean 11th and Gutierrez 21 seconds behind in 13th. Next up was the lights of the Singapore Grand Prix. The team brought their final updates of the year here with a new front wing, floor and brake ducts. Grosjean didn't get to test them at all in FP1 as an air intake issue kept him in the garages. He then completed only 12 laps in FP2 after crashing and damaging the rear wing, floor and rear suspension. Both drivers advanced into Q2 once again and qualified 14th and 15th. Grosjean's weekend went from bad to worse as he crashed heavily at turn 10 on his second run and then received a 5-place grid penalty for his third gearbox change in 4 races. A grid penalty for Sergio Perez as well moved Gutierrez up to 13th. Both drivers started on ultra soft tyres. The worst Grand Prix weekend in Grosjean's career up to that point culminated in a brake-by-wire failure in the garages, which meant he never even started the race. Gutierrez had another poor start and was passed by Marcus Ericsson, Kevin Magnussen, Felipe Nasr and Sergio Perez off the line. Nico Hülkenberg crashed into the pit wall and blocked in Nasr, which allowed Gutierrez to get ahead. He then passed Valtteri Bottas, Jenson Button and Perez on the run to turn 5 before the safety car was brought out. The drivers were sent through the pit lane as the start-finish straight was obstructed and the race resumed at the end of lap 2. Carlos Sainz pitted on lap 7 and Ericsson on lap 8, which moved Gutierrez into the points. Max Verstappen pitted on lap 13, Fernando Alonso on lap 14, Daniel Kvyat on lap 15, Massa on lap 16 and Magnussen on lap 17, which moved Gutierrez up to 5th. He then pitted for a second set of ultra soft tyres on lap 18 and rejoined in 13th. Sebastian Vettel pitted on lap 24 and Perez on lap 25, which gave him 2 places. Vettel passed Gutierrez at turn 8 on lap 27 while he was battling with Sainz. Sainz then pitted along with Verstappen and Massa pitted on lap 28, which moved Gutierrez up to 9th. Verstappen passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 33 and Perez passed him at turn 7. Massa then passed Gutierrez at turn 7 on lap 36. Gutierrez then pitted for a set of soft tyres and rejoined in 13th. Massa pitted on lap 43, which gave Gutierrez a place. He passed Sainz at turn 7 on lap 47. He was lapped on lap 55 and survived a late charge from Massa to finish 11th once again. Formula 1 then stayed in Southeast Asia for the Malaysian Grand Prix. They advanced into Q2 again, with Grosjean 12th and Gutierrez a 10th behind in 13th. Both drivers started on soft tyres and Felipe Massa started from the pit lane, which gave both drivers a place. Gutierrez had the better start and passed Grosjean off the line, but Grosjean repassed him around the outside of turn 1. Nico Rosberg and Sebastian Vettel collided at turn 1, which gave both drivers 2 places. Gutierrez repassed Grosjean on the exit of turn 1 but was hit from behind by Kevin Magnussen, which gave him a puncture and dropped him down the field. The virtual safety car was then deployed. Gutierrez called round to the pits for a second set of soft tyres and rejoined in 21st just behind Magnussen and far behind the rest of the field. The race resumed on lap 2. Gutierrez passed Magnussen at turn 1 on lap 3. Grosjean found himself in 9th, being pressured by Fernando Alonso, who passed him at turn 4 on lap 6. Massa pitted on lap 6, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Grosjean was trying to come back at Alonso, but the car's brakes completely gave way as he was braking for turn 15 on lap 8 and he spun off into the gravel trap and out of the race. The virtual safety car was then deployed and the race resumed on lap 10. Massa passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 18. Magnussen had just retired from behind, leaving Gutierrez in 19th and last. Gutierrez pitted for a set of medium tyres on lap 22 and came out lapped. Esteban Ocon pitted on lap 31 and came up behind Gutierrez. Gutierrez pitted for a third set of soft tyres on lap 39 and came back out behind Ocon. However, on the run to turn 9, the bolt on the front left wheel sheared off and the wheel flew off, so Gutierrez pulled over and out of the race, giving Haas their first ever double retirement. A 10th place finish for Jolyon Palmer moved Gutierrez down to 20th in the Drivers' Championship. Next up was the Japanese Grand Prix. Grosjean's brake problems continued as he crashed at the Degner curves in FP1 and broke off his front wing. Gutierrez then stopped on track in FP2 with a turbocharger failure. Despite these struggles, the team achieved their first double Q3 appearance in qualifying. Grosjean went 8th and Gutierrez was 6/10 slower in 10th. Grosjean set an identical time to Sergio Perez but was classified behind as Perez set his time first. A grid penalty for Kimi Raikkonen moved Grosjean up to 7th. Both drivers started on soft tyres. Raikkonen and Nico Hülkenberg passed Grosjean off the line. Grosjean locked up braking for turn 1 and narrowly avoided rear-ending Hülkenberg. Both drivers ran in formation through the first stint. Grosjean pitted for a set of hard tyres on lap 10 and rejoined in 19th. Daniel Ricciardo pitted as well, which moved Gutierrez up to 8th. Grosjean passed Pascal Wehrlein at the hairpin on lap 11. Gutierrez then pitted for a set of hard tyres and rejoined in 21st. Grosjean then passed Esteban Ocon at turn 1 on lap 12. Ocon pitted on lap 12, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Carlos Sainz pitted on lap 13 and rejoined just in front of Gutierrez, which gave a place to Grosjean. Grosjean then passed Felipe Nasr at the hairpin on lap 14, Kevin Magnussen at turn 1 on lap 16, and Marcus Ericsson at turn 1 on lap 80. Gutierrez found himself stuck behind a train of 4 cars. On lap 19, he attempted to pass Carlos Sainz at the Casio Triangle but locked up, went into a spin and lightly damaged the front wing going over the curbs. Jenson Button then pitted, which gave him a place, as he resumed now 5 seconds behind Sainz. Grosjean passed Jolyon Palmer at turn 1 on lap 23. Daniel Kvyat then pitted, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Felipe Massa pitted on lap 24 and Palmer, Magnussen and Nasr on lap 25, which moved Grosjean up to 10th and Gutierrez to 14th. Massa passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 26. Valtteri Bottas and Ericsson pitted on lap 26, which gave both drivers a place each. Alonso then pitted on lap 27, which gave another place to Gutierrez. Button then passed him at turn 1 on lap 28 and Palmer passed him at the hairpin. Hülkenberg pitted on lap 28, which moved Grosjean to 8th. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of hard tyres on lap 28 and rejoined lapped in 21st. Perez pitted on lap 29, which gave another place to Grosjean. Grosjean then pitted for a second set of hard tyres on lap 30 and rejoined in 11th. Ocon pitted on lap 31, which gave a place to Gutierrez. Button then pitted on lap 36, which gave him another place, but quickly repassed Gutierrez at turn 3 on lap 38. Grosjean finished 11th once again despite a late charge at Bottas, and Gutierrez languished down in 20th after another disappointing race. It was now time for the team's home race, the United States Grand Prix. The rear brake drum winglets fell off Grosjean's car during FP1, and then at the end of the session both drivers stopped at the pit lane exit as Gutierrez stalled and Grosjean couldn't engage first gear. The drivers struggled for pace at the circuit, and Grosjean had his first Q1 elimination since the opening round in Australia and lined up 17th. Gutierrez just scraped into Q2 to qualify 14th. Gutierrez started on soft tyres and Grosjean on super softs. Both drivers passed a poor starting Nico Hülkenberg at turn 1. Valtteri Bottas got a puncture at turn 1 from Hülkenberg and was passed by both drivers at turn 4. Jenson Button passed Grosjean at turn 8. Daniel Kvyat and Sergio Perez collided at turn 11, which sent Perez into a spin and he was passed by both drivers. Kvyat ran wide and rejoined behind Gutierrez. Grosjean then passed Jolyon Palmer at turn 12, who then repassed him at turn 13, leaving Gutierrez 10th and Grosjean 15th at the end of lap 1. Grosjean repassed Palmer around the outside of turn 1 on lap 2. Button passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 3, but Gutierrez took the place back at turn 3 after Button ran over a piece of debris from lap 1. Button then passed him again at turn 12. Grosjean passed Marcus Ericsson there at the same time, and then passed Kvyat there on lap 5 and Gutierrez at turn 11 on lap 7. Gutierrez was then passed by Perez at turn 1 on lap 8. Grosjean pitted for a set of soft tyres on lap 10 along with Button and Perez and rejoined in 18th after Perez jumped him in the pit lane. This moved Gutierrez up to 10th. Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso pitted on lap 11, which moved Gutierrez up to 8th. Kvyat then passed him at turn 12 and Sainz passed him at turn 1 on lap 13. Gutierrez then pitted for a second set of soft tyres and rejoined in 18th. Kevin Magnussen and Pascal Wehrlein pitted as well, which moved Grosjean up to 15th. Gutierrez passed Esteban Ocon at turn 12 on lap 14. Grosjean passed Palmer at turn 16 at the same time. Gutierrez's brakes seized up at turn 11 on lap 16 and he crawled round to the pits to retire. Ericsson pitted on lap 17, which gave a place to Grosjean. Grosjean kept in touch with Perez. He pitted on lap 27 for a set of medium tyres along with Perez and rejoined still in 12th as Magnussen behind pitted as well. Max Verstappen retired on lap 29, which moved him up to 11th and briefly brought out the virtual safety car. Kimi Raikkonen then retired on lap 39, which moves him into the points. Grosjean was lapped on lap 41 and went on to score the team's first point since the Austrian Grand Prix. Formula 1 then travelled south for Gutierrez's home race, the Mexican Grand Prix. Grosjean lost a lot of running in FP2 due to an ECU failure. Qualifying ended up being a big disappointment as both drivers struggled for grip and were eliminated in Q1 for the first time since the season-opening Australian Grand Prix. Jolly and Palmer did not set a time, and Grosjean went slowest to qualify 21st. Gutierrez was half a second faster and qualified 17th. Both drivers started on soft tyres, and Grosjean opted to start from the pit lane in order to allow the car to be brought out of Parc Fermé. Gutierrez passed Marcus Ericsson on the long run to turn 1. Ericsson tried to repass him at turn 2. Gutierrez got squeezed in between him and Wehrlein and hit Wehrlein, which sent him into the side of Ericsson and took Wehrlein out of the race. Felipe Nasr then passed Gutierrez at turn 3. Gutierrez then repassed Nasr at turn 4. The virtual safety car was then deployed with Gutierrez 15th and Grosjean 20th. This quickly became a full safety car. Daniel Ricciardo and Palmer both pitted at the end of lap 1, which gave both drivers 1 place each. The race resumed at the end of lap 3. Ricciardo passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 7. Grosjean pitted for a set of medium tyres on lap 11 and rejoined in 21st and last. Nasr passed Gutierrez at turn 4 on lap 12. Gutierrez then pitted for a set of medium tyres and rejoined in 20th, 3 seconds in front of Grosjean. Daniel Kvyat pitted on lap 13 and Esteban Ocon on lap 15, which moved Gutierrez up to 18th. Kvyat passed Gutierrez at turn 4 on lap 22. Grosjean was lapped on lap 35 and Gutierrez on lap 37. Fernando Alonso pitted on lap 45 and came out behind Gutierrez. He then passed Gutierrez at turn 1 on lap 47. Kvyat then pitted on lap 47 and came out behind both drivers. He passed Grosjean at turn 12 on lap 48 and sent both of them wide in the process. Gutierrez pitted for a second set of soft tyres on lap 48 and rejoined in 21st. He passed Ocon at turn 6 on lap 50. Grosjean then pitted for a second set of soft tyres and rejoined in 21st. Grosjean passed Ocon on the run to turn 1 on lap 53. A largely uncompetitive race ended with the two drivers 9 seconds apart in 19th and 20th. The final race in the Americas was the Brazilian Grand Prix. On the Friday morning, Gutierrez confirmed that he had failed to secure his seat for the following year and would not drive for the team in 2017. His seat was to be taken by Renault driver Kevin Magnussen. Charles Leclerc ran in the car in place of Gutierrez in FP1 again. The team tried out a new brake manufacturer, Carbone Industry, in the hope that it would alleviate the reliability problems they'd been having. There was a vast improvement in qualifying as Grosjean advanced into Q3 to qualify 7th. Gutierrez was less than a tenth slower in Q2 but did not make the cut and lined up 12th. Torrential rain came on Sunday. Grosjean ended up not starting the race as he crashed on the way to the grid. The race started behind the safety car with everyone on full wet tyres. The safety car came in at the end of lap 7. Felipe Massa immediately passed Gutierrez. Gutierrez then span on the start-finish straight on lap 8 and resumed in 20th. Jenson Button pitted for intermediates on lap 8, and Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, Massa, Daniel Kvyat, Jolyon Palmer and Marcus Ericsson on lap 9, which moved Gutierrez up to 13th. He then passed Pascal Wehrlein at the Senna S on lap 10. Sebastian Vettel pitted on lap 10, which moved him up to 11th. Gutierrez pitted for intermediates on lap 12 and rejoined in 19th. While he was in the pit lane, Ericsson crashed on the start-finish straight, which brought out the safety car. Kvyat pitted on lap 17, which gave Gutierrez a place. The safety car came in at the end of lap 19. Almost as soon as it came back in, it was brought out again after Kimi Raikkonen crashed heavily on the start-finish straight. The race was then quickly red flagged. The race resumed behind the safety car 35 minutes later with everyone on full wet tyres. The race got red flagged again on lap 28 due to the deteriorating conditions. The race resumed behind the safety car again 23 minutes later and more than 2 hours after the race had originally started. The safety car came in at the end of lap 31. Massa immediately pitted to serve a penalty for passing Gutierrez before the safety car line on lap 7, which moved Gutierrez up to 16th. Button pitted on lap 34 and Bottas on lap 38, which gave him 2 more places. Gutierrez then passed Wehrlein on the start-finish straight on lap 40. Kevin Magnussen pitted on lap 41, which gave him another place. Kvyat passed Gutierrez at the Senna S on lap 45. Massa then passed him at Bico de Pato and Bottas at Junção on lap 46. Massa crashed out on the start-finish straight on lap 47. Gutierrez swerved around him and pitted for intermediate tyres and rejoined lapped in 16th. The safety car was then brought out for the 5th time. Gutierrez was permitted to unlap himself. Max Verstappen pitted on lap 54, which moved him up to 15th. The safety car came in at the end of lap 55. Alonso immediately spun, which gave Gutierrez another place, and he then passed Magnussen at the CNRS on lap 56, but was passed by Verstappen at the same time. Gutierrez tried to pass Wehrlein at the CNRS on lap 59, but started to lose power and was passed by Alonso at turn 8 and Magnussen at the CNRS on lap 60 and Button at Pico de Pato, putting him in last. He then pulled into the pits and out of the race with an MGUH failure. A 9th place finish from Nasser dropped Gutierrez to 21st in the Drivers' Championship. The 2016 season reached its end with the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Grosjean had a spin in FP1 and had yet more braking problems. He then lost more time in FP2 with a water leak. Both drivers advanced to Q2 in qualifying and took up their usual spots on row 7 with Gutierrez 13th and Grosjean 14th. Gutierrez started on super soft tyres and Grosjean on softs. Gutierrez passed Jenson Button at turn 1. Max Verstappen then span on the exit of turn 1, which gave a place to both drivers. Jolly and Palmer then passed Grosjean at turn 2. Palmer then passed Gutierrez at turn 6. Button repassed Gutierrez at turn 7 and both drivers were passed there by Daniel Kvyat. Grosjean then passed Gutierrez at turn 8 and both drivers were passed by Felipe Nasr at turn 9, leaving them 15th and 16th at the end of lap 1. Verstappen passed Gutierrez at turn 21 on lap 2 and Grosjean at turn 8 on lap 3. Squeezing Grosjean here allowed Gutierrez to repass Grosjean at turn 9. Gutierrez repassed Nasr at turn 11 on lap 5. Grosjean then passed Nasr at turn 8 on lap 6. Valtteri Bottas then retired, which gave both drivers a place. Fernando Alonso and Palmer pitted on lap 7, which gave both drivers 2 places. Gutierrez pitted on lap 8 for a set of soft tyres and rejoined in 17th. Felipe Massa and Kvyat also pitted, which moved Grosjean up to 10th. Gutierrez passed Kvyat at turn 11 on lap 9. Perez then pitted on lap 9, which gave Grosjean another place, but he quickly passed Grosjean at turn 8. Button retired on lap 12, which gave both drivers a place. Massa passed Grosjean at turn 8 on lap 14. Alonso then passed him at turn 11 on lap 17. Gutierrez passed Palmer at turn 8 on lap 19. Grosjean pitted for a second set of soft tyres on lap 20 and rejoined in 16th, 8 seconds behind Gutierrez. Palmer pitted on lap 21, which gave Grosjean a place. Gutierrez passed Ericsson at turn 11 on lap 23 and Grosjean then passed Carlos Sainz there but was forced to cut the chicane. He then passed Ericsson at turn 8 on lap 26 and was now 4 seconds behind Gutierrez. Gutierrez pitted on lap 28 for a second set of soft tyres and rejoined in 14th. He passed Nasr at turn 8 on lap 32 and Ericsson there on lap 34 and was now 25 seconds behind Grosjean. Grosjean pitted for a set of super soft tyres on lap 38 and rejoined 4 seconds in front of Gutierrez. Grosjean pulled away on his fresher tyres and finished in 11th, 19 seconds ahead of Gutierrez in 12th. There were a lot of ups and downs in Haas's first season in Formula 1. A lot of money and a lot of preparation meant they entered the sport as a strong midfield team that were rarely genuinely fast enough for points, but could occasionally pick them up when other teams fell by the wayside. After the summer break, development stalled as they began to focus on 2017, and the car's performance and reliability became much more inconsistent, as demonstrated by the fact that they scored only 1 point in the second half of the season. They finished 8th in the Constructors' Championship with 29 points. Romain Grosjean had a mixed season. He tended to be the faster of the two drivers, but also bore most of the bad luck and reliability problems as he won the qualifying battle 12-9, but lost the race battle 7-6, despite single-handedly scoring all the team's points. The front wing failures in the first half of the season and the brake failures in the second half almost exclusively affected him. But his pace was clear to see when the car was working, such as his strong drive to 5th in Bahrain and his 7th place qualifying performance in Brazil. He finished 13th in the Drivers' Championship with 29 points. Esteban Gutierrez was not too far off Grosjean's race pace, but it was often hard to measure due to him rarely having clean races. He would often qualify well and then either have a very poor start or get tangled up in first lap collisions that would eliminate any chances of scoring points. His repeated costly errors and bad luck ultimately led to him not being retained for 2017. He finished 21st in the Drivers' Championship with a best finish of 11th at the Spanish, Monaco, Austrian, German and Singapore Grand Prix. Join me for part 2 where we shall look at Haas's 2017 campaign. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brook_F1 and I'll see you all next time.